Hello and welcome to the very first episode of ECF's Composite Cast Monthly. This is a new monthly podcast and is sponsored and brought to you by ECF Composites Limited, the UK's leading supplier of composite materials such, well, you can tell them, Martin.
Yeah, composite materials such as resins, for example, polyurethanes, epoxies, polyester, a range of polyester and vinyl ester fillers, bonding agents, GLP, roofing materials, craft supplies, and fibreglass matting, fibreglass cloths, carbon fibre fabrics, Kevlar fabrics, and much, much more. So check out our website at ecfcomposites.co.uk.
Fantastic. So let's get started with the Composites Cast Monthly podcast. Let's have the theme tune. Hello again, welcome to Composite Cast. Are we going to call it Composite Cast Monthly or just Composite Cast?
I'm not sure what to call it, to be honest. I think we'll just roll with this for now, and maybe once we start engaging with our listeners, they might come up with an idea. That's probably a good idea, actually, if our listeners come up with a good idea for a name for our podcasts. And,
by the way, this is something to mention at the top of the thing. If you want to get in touch with us, there's a new email, compositescast@gmail.com. Well, that's with an S, so compositescast. Shouldn't have done that, but that's what it is. compositescast@gmail.com. So let's get started. We've got a few ideas for sections to include in the podcast.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And the first one is going to be a Q&A. So we invite you to email if you have a question about anything to do. Oh, we didn't introduce ourselves, did we? I should do that.
No, who's going first?
I'll go first. My name's Nick. I'll look after the website and photography, videos, things like podcasts. And you are?
And my name is Martin, General Manager, Technical Advisor, and also Project Researcher for ECF Composites.
Which leads us on to say that in our regular Q&A section, if anyone has a question, email it in. We've got the very man here in Martin who should be able to answer your question.
Yeah, should be. And if I can't, I'll certainly find out.
So we'll crack on then, shall we, with the Q&A segment. Could do with a snappy title for that, couldn't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, the Q&A segment, and we have a question here, Martin. So obviously it's the first podcast, so we get a lot of questions sent in to the website and email and stuff, so this is one of those, isn't it? This is a question from Jonathan, and he said, "Hi, I'm planning on making a shower tray for a camper van. I've done some fiberglass projects, flat roof, motorcycle panniers, slab moulds, plus a few others in the past, but need a brush up on techniques, materials, etc." Over to you, Martin.
Yeah, so shower trays, we get a lot of those requests, usually to fix shower trays. Some of our listeners might already know that a lot of stuff that you buy now, it's made quite cheaply. Even if it's made out of fiberglass, it's usually one layer, and goes for baths and shower trays.
Right.
And a lot of them are made out of acrylics as well, which are terrible for cracking. So I get a lot of calls on fixing those and what have you. But I have had a few on actually making shower trays from scratch. And instances where that might happen is if somebody's got a boat or a camper van and they're struggling for space, and they've got a certain shape, it's quite unique to their project, and they might want to make their own shower tray. So to do that, first of all, you're going to need what's known as a plug or former, depending on whether you're from the US or UK. There's different terminologies for that. So this is a model or a mock-up of what you want the shape to be, and it's usually out of timber. If you've got the budget for it and the equipment, you might want to CNC it. But usually it's a mixture of timber and body filler, which most people have at hand. Once you've got the plug, you then need to seal it with something. So usually a shellac or a sand and sealer varnish. So any kind of hardware and polyurethane varnish. Once you've sealed it, you then put a product called Durabuild on, which is a resin-based surface primer. Don't use any of the car spray primers; they're no good. They tend to kind of melt under the whole process of fiberglassing and the release agents and what have you. So once the Durabuild's cured, it's in a process of smoothing that down, bringing it to a shine if you want to shine on it, and then you do your release agents. I normally find several coats of PVA release agents. More coats if you're going to spray it on, that'll give you the best finish, but a lot of people haven't got spray equipment, so usually using what's known as a Jenny brush or a foam brush, to you and me, you use that to put the PVA release agent on. Usually you would use a gloss PVA release agent, several coats of that, let the first coat dry, and then when you put the subsequent coats on, put them on quite quick. You don't want to dissolve that first coat. And then once all 3 coats are on, just a light coat of mold release wax. You don't always need mold release wax, but I find that if you put the mold release wax on, it's just an extra kind of help to the release, right, without actually grabbing the plug. Then after that, there's your gel coat, usually a tooling gel, or you can use a standard gel if you're just doing a one-off mold. There's no need to go to the lengths of using tooling products unless you're going into production of these things. So in Jonathan's case, it's a one-off, so just a normal gel coat. Let that cure off. Then your first layer of, say, a 300 gram mat, just a nice lightweight mat, applied with a polyester resin. If you've got awkward corners, you can use 6mm chopped strands. We have those on our website. Let that layer cure, and it's always a good idea to let your first layer cure, then it's not going to get disturbed by the rest of the layers that you put on there. For a normal production mold, you would usually go 5 or 6 layers of mat with a tooling resin. But for a one-off mold, you'll probably get away with 4 more layers of 450 gram chopped strand mat. Once that's cured, if you use a general purpose resin, leave it on there for a good week or so. When resin cures, it'll still go through what's known as a post-cure. And that's where the resin's just getting harder and harder over time. If you pull general purpose resin off too early, it'll start to shrink as it's curing. So it's a good idea to leave it on there for a good week. With tooling resin, however, you can make a production mold within a couple of days. You can usually lay it up in day 1 and then take it off on day 2,
right,
and that's your mold already.
So is that the benefit of tooling gel coat over a normal
Yes.
gel coat? Is it just cures
Yes,
quicker?
and you get lower shrinkage as well. So
Right.
you would use tooling resin. We've got, what's the number again? It's RTR
4010?
4010, that's the one. And that's a low shrinkage tooling resin. And it's part of a system. But it just means you can make a production mold a lot quicker, and it's a lot stronger than normal resins. But for a one-off shower tray,
Right.
you don't need to go to all that.
Is it much more expensive than just a normal?
Not really.
Right.
Not really, to be honest. No. Once you've got your mould, you then need to wax it. We usually say use a Carnauba wax, like a TR 104 high temp or Maguire's. Give it about 10 waxes, 40 minutes between each buff. So give it a wax, buff that off, leave it 40 minutes, then another wax. It's probably overkill. There'll be a lot of people saying, no, I don't put that many on, but it's always best to be safe than sorry, especially when you've spent the money on making a mould. So going a bit overboard certainly doesn't hurt the process. And then you're ready to apply whatever colour gel coat you want your shower tray to be. Let that cure off. Lay it up with a couple of layers of mat. Once that's cured, you can bond on some timbers just to strengthen it. Usually just a flat sheet of chipboard, and then fibreglass on the back of that, and that should give you a decent enough shower tray. Pop that off, and that's your finished article, just ready for trimming. So that's how you would make your shower tray.
Oh, fantastic. But just before we move on, just go back to what you were saying about, if you don't mind, what we were saying about repairing shower trays. First question is it worth repairing a fiberglass shower tray? And number 2, briefly, what would be the process in doing that?
If you're going to repair a shower tray, I would just do it as a temporary thing.
Right.
Anything you put on there is going to look ugly.
Okay.
So you're probably going to want to change it anyway. With acrylic trays, it's a bit temperamental when you repair those. Polyesters just tend to attack the acrylic. So it's not good using a polyester. I would use an epoxy if you're going to use something.
Right.
Maybe something like West System G-Flex. But it doesn't come in any kind of colours, so it is going to look unsightly, but it will seal your shower tray. If it's on a boat or a camper van and you're not too bothered about the appearance, you could just fiberglass the whole thing, so it becomes a tray within a tray.
Right, I get you.
Surface tissue, and then. But when you're doing something not out of a mould, it can look a bit ugly. So.
All right, brilliant. Thanks very much. And if you have any questions about composites, about anything to do with composites, send us an email, compositescast@gmail.com. Okay, we'll move on to the next section, shall we?
Yeah, it was definitely a long question that to start off. So.
It was quite a long one, and the next section is called Cool Composites.
I usually stumble upon odd stories and I just reading through anything to do with fiberglass. When I'm doing any research, I might come across something interesting. So I thought I'd add any of those stories I find in this section.
Okay, so you're looking at basically developments in the industry.
Yeah.
So what have you got for us today then in Cool Composites?
So today I've got, researchers at the Leibniz, I hope I've pronounced that correctly.
Leibniz.
Leibniz. Anyway, it's the Institute for New Materials, and they'll be presenting a new composite material that prevents metal corrosion, even in extreme conditions. Huh. The patented composite product can be applied by spraying and occurs at 150 to 200 degrees, so you'll need a good oven. It is suitable for steels, metal alloys, aluminium, magnesium and copper, and can be used to coat any shape of plates, pipes, gear wheels, tools or machine parts. Its specially formulated mixture contains a solvent, a binder and a nanoscale platelet-like particles. It does not contain chromium-6 or other heavy materials. I have no idea what chromium-6 is.
So what is it then? Is it like it's a plastic for coating things?
Yeah, it's kind of a coating. So if you, for example, this would probably be really useful in automotive. So if you think the bottom of your car, it's that protecting that from all the corrosion and rust. I know there's coatings out there, but this is supposed to be some new amazing thing. Yeah, so it's an environmentally friendly process, and it can be used wherever metals are exposed to severe weather conditions. Right. And aggressive gases and media containing salt. So yeah, going back to what I was saying about the automotive industry. You get a lot of salt water in the bottom of your car. You wouldn't think, when the grit roads, there's a lot of salt there. You've got stone chippings coming up and that. So I think this will be good for the marine industry as well when it comes out. So after thermal curing, the composite adheres to metal substrates, and it's abrasion stable and impact resistant. As a result, it can withstand high mechanical stress. The coating passes the fallen ball test. So the Institute will actually be at the Tech Connect World Trade Fair on the 15th and 16th of June. That's this year, 2024. So if you listen to this podcast in 2025, I'm sorry, but you've already missed it, guys.
Right. Where is this Tech Connect fair then? Where's that?
Well, it's in Washington.
Well, I can go to that because I live in Washington.
No, Nick, sorry. It's not Washington, Tyne and Weir. It's Washington, D.C., USA.
Right, I might not bother then.
So, yeah, our story's no borders, I'm afraid, Nick. But hopefully for the next episode, I'll try and find something that's been developed in the UK.
Great.
Obviously, we wanted to get this podcast up and running, so...
I know, it is an interesting thing. I know I often watch the orders come in, and if there's anyone interested, I'll go and have a quick look at their website or whatever. And there's... I don't want to give too much away because I'm not sure if they like to be advertised, but I noticed there was a company making rockets to deliver satellites, to low Earth orbit. And so we have amazingly fascinating customers, don't we? We make all sorts of stuff. Yeah, one thing I've noticed loads of recently is, last couple of years, loads of prop houses around film industry and stuff. Yeah. So there's what's all the film places down in London and all that?
There was one actually. There's a series out called is it called The Deep?
Right. Okay, I'm not sure. Maybe.
No. Anyway, I've forgotten what the series is called, and it's the storylines. It's around a murder that happens in this town, and there's a rookie officer trying to investigate it, but the whole town gets flooded.
Right.
And I think some of it was filmed in Manchester, but there is a YouTube video where they show the set.
Oh, okay.
And when I was watching it, I was thinking, how on earth did they manage to flood a whole street the way they did? But it's actually it's just fiberglass houses, but it looks so real.
My goodness, I remember a few years back. Do you remember that movie Interstellar? That was a big Hollywood movie. Do you remember that one?
Vaguely.
I can't remember exactly. I can't remember what the story was, but I remember watching that. And in this spaceship, there was all these white container things, and they were the life raft containers that our company made.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so before ECF Composites was formed, we were known as a company called High Spec Plastics, and we used to make life raft containers. And I think that rings a bell.
Yeah. That was bad. I recognised them on the movie.
Yeah.
What are they doing in space? Right, anyway. What are we up to now? Okay, it's time for a word from our sponsor.
For composite supplies, come to the UK's favourite supplier. With thousands of products in stock for fast delivery and free technical help, find us at ecfibreglass.co.uk or just search for East Coast Fibreglass.
Okay, so that was a quick word from our sponsor, and now it's time for the next part of the podcast, and it's over to Martin for some composites news.
Thank you, Nick. In today's composite news, we'll be reporting on how the events in the Red Sea are affecting the composite industry. So, you may all remember, in fact, I don't think anyone's likely to forget anytime soon, but in March 2020 we saw closures and restrictions put in place due to COVID-19. We also left the European Union, causing all sorts of confusion and uncertainty. Also, in the following year, 2021, we saw the Suez Canal blocked for 6 days by the Ever Given, a container ship that had run aground in the canal, causing long delays to deliveries and products and also raw materials. Due to the extreme winter storms in Texas, which caused a huge power crisis, we experienced delays of fillers and adhesives being shipped from one of our major manufacturing facilities there. And then, as we thought everything was getting back to normal, Russia decided to invade Ukraine. And as sanctions were imposed on Russia, companies then had to start to try and scramble around and resource a lot of their raw materials, mostly at a higher cost. So we can see clearly how much these kind of world events, no matter how far away from us they are, can affect supply and pricing here in the UK. And of course, today we're still experiencing potential issues with supply here in the UK, especially if it is coming from other parts of Europe. We've got the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. It's still going on. Doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. And now recent events unfolding in the Red Sea, the attacks by the Yemen Houthi fighters on commercial ships. If the situation worsens, then delays brought on by these events could cause a spike in prices, especially if the ships have to avoid the shortcut between Europe and Asia. Since the recent airstrikes as well, the US and the UK attacking the Houthi fighters, vessels are turning away from the Red Sea since things have started to escalate. In the short term, there's a few points most industries will be following closely, including what the Iran-backed militant group meant when it warned all US and UK interests now are legitimate targets, which could mean more ships being targeted, not just the UK and US ships, but any ship they see carrying goods bound for the US or UK. So far, it seems that most vessels, but not all, are heeding the advice to avoid the key waterway, meaning they can't now use the Suez Canal. Longer journeys, obviously, they'll incur higher transport costs, and around 12% of the total global shipping traffic goes through the Suez Canal,
right,
which is the shortest route between Europe and Asia. Just recently, we ourselves at ECF Composites, we had to quickly arrange an early dispatch of some of our materials we were acquiring from Germany. This is to hopefully beat this possible inflation in shipping costs, and also to ensure that we have the bulk of our stock to see us through if things did escalate further.
Yeah. How long do you think it takes for something, a political thing like that to affect the price to the end user? Because if you're thinking about it, obviously the oil's coming out the ground somewhere. and then it's being shipped somewhere else. Then it's going into a refinery.
Yeah.
From there, it's going to go to the producers of resins and stuff,
of course,
and from them to us. So
definitely.
how long is the knock-on effect, do you reckon?
It could take weeks or months. I mean, it's an unknown, to be honest. I mean, some companies, they could predict a spike and they could put the prices up straight away.
Right, okay.
Rest assured, we won't do that.
No, we don't.
If we'll try and keep our, keep on the ball with these things and hopefully keep the prices down, get stock in quickly. As soon as we see anything that looks like it's going to cause a problem, we've learned by experience. From like I say, from 2020, we've learned how it can affect us massively. So any kind of conflicts around that area, anything going on around the Red Sea or in Europe, we have to think, how is it going to affect us? And
we were really lucky in 2020 for a different reason.
Yeah,
if you remember, because I think what we found in 2020 when the pandemic hit and all the lockdowns and everything was all of a sudden lots of new customers coming to us, weren't they, and saying,
"That's right,
nobody's got anything."
Yeah,
and we had plenty because our management always believed in keeping enough excess stock in case anything ever happened, instead of running to the bone and on a next day basis sort of thing, which it caught a lot of people out, I think, back then, didn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we were lucky as well. We had we stock a lot of roofing products.
Yeah.
So because we supplied to the building trade, and because we sold fibreglass for industries, for example, making decontamination units.
Right. Yeah.
It kept us going because we fell in that category that could stay open.
Yeah.
So we put our restrictions in place. We also did like a night shift, so we could split the staff and keep them apart. And we also saw that the craft industry, a lot of people working from home, a lot of people doing hobbies and things like that. Yeah. So we were selling a lot of craft materials, and that opened up a whole new section for us. So although a lot of our products on our website, they look quite industrial, the common guy in the shed uses a lot of our materials. There's a lot of hobbyists in it. We also have a lot of crafters as well who buy off us. So check out our craft section. It's growing all the time.
It was mad, wasn't it, in that pandemic? I was working from home when that happened, which had its good points and bad points. It was lovely to not have to get up and out in the morning, but not so nice to have to try and educate your child at the same time as doing your work. I think you were splitting your time as well, weren't you?
Yeah. I did save a lot of money actually. Well, I'm saying save. I was doing a lot more gardening and fixing all the things that needed fixing. So, I saved on not spending it in me money in the pub, but I was. I was certainly doing DIY and home improvements.
Oh, I missed the pub, Mark. Yeah. All right, so that's Composites News, correct? And now
that's right.
Moving along, hopefully, to something a bit more lighter with a section called Curious Composites, which is anything composite related, which is weird, funny, or unusual. What have you got for us today, Martin?
Sure. You probably remember a few weeks ago, me and you were working on a guide for the website, and so was Gary and Lee. There was about 4 were involved, and we were doing a guide on the pros and cons of fiberglass, carbon, Kevlar cloths. So whilst I was typing up a part about the Kevlar strength versus steel wire, there was a memory popped in my head, and I wasn't sure if I was remembering it correctly or if it was just some kind of online hoax I'd kind of bought into at the time. But so I looked it up, and it was a true thing. It was an actual documentary I watched.
A documentary?
Yeah.
Right. What was that about then?
So this documentary, it was about the spider goats of Utah.
Spider goats?
Spider goats.
What on earth? What's a spider goat?
So it's not a goat with 8 legs or one that shoots webs out of its hoofs or anything.
Spider goat,
spider goat does whatever a spider goat does. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read this out without laughing, actually, because it does sound ridiculous.
Okay.
So it must have been around 10 years ago. So I was watching a BBC Two series called Horizon.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if is it still on the telly now, Horizon?
I don't know, but it was brilliant.
Yeah. But there was one particular episode called Playing God.
Right.
And they discussed synthetic biology.
Right.
And during the episode, the presenter, which at the time was Adam Rutherford, who meets a goat called Freckles.
Right.
Freckles, however, is a long way from being a normal goat.
Right.
She is all goat,
Yeah.
but has something extra in every one of her cells.
Right.
Freckles is also part spider.
Why?
We'll get that later.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, seriously, I had to double check my facts on this one. I wasn't sure, like I say, if I'd picked up some fake news story that was lodged in my brain from 10 years ago. So I typed in spider goat and found the story. So if you type in spider goat to Utah, you'll any of our listeners will come across it. And even on the BBC website, they have a small clip. The full documentary isn't on iPlayer or anything, but you can find it on YouTube. There's parts of the documentary on there as well.
Can I tell you what my prediction for this story is?
What?
And I'll cut it out in the edit if I'm wrong or right. Have they genetically engineered a goat so they can get spider silk out of its teats?
Actually, yeah.
Is that it?
You're
Really?
pretty much spot on, yeah.
Right, go on, sorry for
Yeah,
interrupting.
no,
Go
no,
on,
that's right. No, you got it in one.
teats.
So, Adam Rutherford, the scientist, writer, broadcaster, he goes on to explain, Freckles is the result of genetic engineering, but our mastery of manipulating DNA has evolved into an even more extreme form of tinkering, broadly called synthetic biology.
Right.
Freckles is the creation of Randy Lewis, a professor of genetics at Utah State University. The farm is a university outpost. Randy.
Okay.
Yeah, proper typical American
Randy
name.
and the goat's teats. Continue.
The farm is a university outpost where they research modern farming techniques, teach animal husbandry, and raise what are inevitably referred to as spider goats.
Right, okay.
Randy, like many other scientists there in Logan, Utah has farming in its blood. So although a creature that is part goat, part spider, might seem like something born of science fiction, as far as Randy is concerned, it's simply advanced farming, breeding animals to produce things we want.
Right, fair enough, isn't it?
So Randy's been interviewed and Randy says, we are interested in dragline silk, the silk that spiders catch themselves with when they fall. I didn't know there was different types of silk. So
Neither did I.
It's stronger than Kevlar. It really has some amazing properties for any kind of fibre. He and his team look at the gene and encodes dragline silk from an orb weaver spider and placed among the DNA that prompts milk production in the udders. So you were right, Nick.
Right, okay.
This genetic circuit was then inserted in an egg and implanted into a mother goat. Now when Freckles lactates, her milk is full of spider silk protein.
Right. Weird.
So Randy and Adam milk Freckles. Sorry, I'm doing the actions here. So they're milking it in this episode, and then they process it in a lab to leave only the silk proteins.
Right.
So you see them just kind of get this glass rod, and they're delicately lifted out of this single fibre, out of what becomes obviously spider silk.
Right.
And then they spin it onto a reel, and they say it has amazing and desirable properties, which is why Randy's seemingly bizarre research is so robustly funded.
Okay.
In the medical field, we already know that we can produce spider silk that is good enough to be used in ligament repair.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so in the documentary, Randy goes further to say we already know we can make it strong enough as an elastic. We've done some studies that show that you can put it in the body and you don't get inflammation or any kind of infection. You don't end up ill, so your body doesn't reject it.
Right.
In the documentary, back then, they stated within a couple of years that they're going to be testing it to see exactly for the best designs and what industries they can use it in.
Well, that's mad. And when was it?
So this was around about 2011 or 2012, I think it was.
Right, so presumably there's been like a lot more advances since then, has there?
Yeah, well, I looked further into this, and so I was a website called agfundernews.com, and the report written by a journalist researcher Richard Martin Hemphill states that all went a bit quiet long after the documentary.
Right.
Sorry, not long after the documentary.
Oh, okay.
Partly because the Montreal-based company leading the way, Nexia Biotechnologies, a company spun out of McGill University, swiftly went... Yeah, I see the pun there. It swiftly went bust, and it sold its two remaining GM goats, Sugar and Spice.
Oh, no.
They sold it to a Canadian Agriculture Museum in Ottawa, which in 2013 removed its genetically engineered goats from display amid public pressure. So, because you can imagine a lot of people will not be happy about playing God.
Well, I was going to say, people would be upset about that.
Yeah.
Utterly disgusted, wouldn't they?
Utterly disgusted, yeah. So, quiet momentum continues, however, under Dr. Randy Lewis of Utah State University. Yeah, he's still tinkering. He's still
tinkering with the teats.
Yeah, he is, yeah. And though he is unaware of the whereabouts of Sugar and Spice, I don't know how long he was looking for. His lab actually looks after 20 goats capable of producing this silky milk. Silky milky. So you never know. Maybe we'll see a section on our website stocking spider goat fibres one day. So, keep checking the website for that.
It could be the next prime drink, that, couldn't it? Silky milk.
Yeah. Yeah, so, yeah.
Kids would love that, I reckon.
Yeah, so, check out our web
site. Web. So that's the Curious Composites section. Can I remind you all, everyone of the email again if you want to get in touch, if you want to ask a question, suggest something for us to talk about. We're all ears to suggestions, aren't we? And that's compositescast@gmail.com. Okay, well, we're nearly at the end of the show. Do you call it a show when it's a podcast?
I'm not sure what to call it.
Podcast. We're nearly at the end of this one anyway. And we're going to have a quick little chat about what's new at East Coast Fibreglass, EC Composites, ECF, whatever we're called nowadays.
Yeah.
A lot of people know us as East Coast Fibreglass.
That's right.
But the actual company is ECF Composites, which stands for East Coast Fibreglass Composites. Okay. So, what's new?
Yeah, so coming soon around about March, a lot of surfboard makers will be happy to hear this. We've got Aerialite coming back to the UK, so we're going to be a distributor of that. If anyone isn't familiar with this product, since its inception, Aerialite fabrics have quite literally raised the bar for high performance surf glass. It's the only fabric that's been developed by surfboard builders. Aerialite took about over 2 years of research and development to perfect the product, and the end result is a fabric of high quality. The look and finish that surfers and board builders would expect to see.
Okay, and what's the difference between normal, like a 4 ounce, 6 ounce glass cloth and an Aerialite one?
So Aerialite cloth is it's like I said, it's loved by most board makers. It disappeared off the UK market for a little while, and board makers had to look for other alternatives. So standard kind of 6 ounce and 4 ounce, and they were disappointed in what they found with these alternatives. They were a bit stiffer. They weren't as clear. They preferred the Aerialite as it draped over the rails easier. And the clarity when wet was superb, and it's less expensive as well compared to the other cloths that are used for other industrial purposes. So a lot of the UK surfboard makers will be happy to see this return, I reckon.
And we've got a surf guy works here, haven't we?
We have, yes, Tim. I've actually just been working with him. We're doing a video for YouTube at the moment on fixing a Porsche partially broken surfboard, so it was nearly
Right.
snapped in two. It was only held on by one side skin, so we've just about finished that. So you'll be getting that next week after to edit and upload that.
So has Tim got experience of these different cloths, the area?
He has. Tim's worked in the industry. He's he worked for, we basically hijacked him from SMH, who make decontamination units. They're another local fibreglass company just round the corner from us. But he's got a wealth of knowledge. He's been in the industry for years. He knows about carbon fibre, delicate cloths used for surfboards, and anything from tool making to making moulds and production. So yeah, we should probably have him on as a special guest one day. To be honest.
Gosh, that'd be we'll definitely do that. Yeah. And we could also we could have people call in as well, I believe, with this equipment. We can connect phones up and stuff. So if anybody has got a story to tell or wants a bit of free advertising.
Yeah, I forgot to mention actually Tim is a surfer as well.
That's right. Yeah. I knew he was a surfer. You can tell from his van outside.
Yeah.
So anything else new, Martin?
So yeah, one other product. We've just recently acquired some adhesive-backed aluminium foil rolls. They're 600mm wide. Normally used for backing for insulation. So when you see foam sheets with this foil backing on them, it's the same kind of product. But it's really useful in the composite industry. Anybody who's put polyester resins and fiberglass onto polystyrene, for example, they'll know that polystyrene will just melt.
Of course, yeah.
The polyester will melt polystyrene in an instant. So there is an actual company on YouTube. I can't remember what it's called, but I think if you type in coating polystyrene, there's a company who make great big sculptures, anything from kind of dinosaurs to horses and all that kind of thing.
Goats?
Maybe goats, yeah. So when they've done a sculpture, they'll line it with its aluminium foil, and it creates a protection.
Right.
So you can then use the cheaper polyester materials. Otherwise, you would have to use epoxies. So epoxies, it's a lot more expensive. It's about 4 or 5 times the cost of polyester, depending on what polyester you're using. But it's certainly more expensive than general purpose. And it's a quicker way of protecting the polystyrene. There is other methods. Some people use PVA glue. Some people coat it with an emulsion paint. But it takes a lot of coats, and I've done it in the past with emulsion paint. If you miss one tiny area,
it'll just get in. It'll
end up with a crater about the size of your fist in the actual sculpt. So yeah, by putting this foil backing on there, it protects the whole thing, and then you can coat it with a fiberglass. So that's quite a handy product. It's meant for a different industry, but it lends as well.
Oh right, that's cool.
It lends itself really well in the composite industry.
We've got a new gel coat spraying gun as well, haven't we?
Yes, the CG110. It's a much more improved version of the other spray gun we had. We used to have the G100, which was quite popular.
From America, that one, wasn't it?
Yeah, this CG110, it's much sleeker. And it can spray a range of materials such as gel coats, resins, sandable primers, paints, as well as adhesives through spraying.
Great. Well, anything else? Was that all the new stuff?
Yeah, that's all the new stuff, and I think we've covered quite a lot of minutes in this podcast. It's
I think we've just about run out of time. You're quite right. So going forward on the Composites Cast podcast, we're hopefully going to bring along a few special guests from the industry to talk about stuff. And today we're lucky enough to have the big guy himself, Mr. Gary Bates, who started this company, and he's here to have a chat. Hello, Gary.
Hi, I'm only 5'7", by the way.
So,
and a half.
Why don't you tell us about the beginnings of East Coast Fiberglass, how it started?
Oh dear me. I mean, I've been here since 1988, 89. Manufacturing, working on the floor. You know, the company was called High Spec Plastics then.
Right.
It was owned by a guy called Fred Spence and Albert Watson. Albert unfortunately died at a very young age, 55 I think he was. So he was actually my dad's best pal, in the shipyards.
All right.
So that's how I got the job here in the first place, through my dad. And then Fred retired, so I took over the manufacturing in '98, and then progressed on the East Coast Fibreglass when the manufacturing got a bit difficult round about in 2003. We just started selling on eBay.
So you started in the manufacturing, and then how did you decide to sell a few bits on eBay?
Well, at the time I had my first son, Kieran, well, my only son, and we were a bit short of cash one day, so I decided to sell all my punk records on eBay.
Ah, right.
So I got like £300 for this one I thought was worth nothing. And then it was one Saturday morning, we were working on the floor, then I decided, well, I told the lads you can sell anything on eBay. And then I literally tipped the waste bin upside down and segregated the cups, the coffee cups and everything like that, and we sold the scrap mat for about £25. And that's, I thought, dear me. Then I started looking around the shop at bits of cloth that we didn't use, we used to make some phenolic battery packs for SAF down on River Drive and South Shields. We had about 5 rolls of cloth like left over, literally skippable stuff, to be honest, and that sold for about like £3,000, like
wow.
£8 a metre or something.
I bet you thought you were going to be rich.
I did. That was short-lived. And then it was just an eBay thing, an eBay shop. We were kind of the first people on eBay. There was a guy called Nick from Tom's, Tony Maguire's Plots and Supplies. We were the first ones on eBay. Then a couple of others drifted in. Obviously now it's flooded with sellers on eBay. Then after that, I shortly decided, met up with Tyne Internet, Sarah Russell, Sarah Foyster now. That's married to Nick here.
Yeah.
And then we made a website, then kind of went from there, a few different platforms. From then we created the company East Coast Fibreglass Supplies in 2006, and that's where we are today.
So you started out, we're sitting in we're kind of next door to where the original factory was.
This used to be Headley's.
This used to be a manufacturing place, didn't it? And then, so you started out the back of high-spec plastics, didn't you?
It was a tiny little room next to the compressor room. You had to put earphones on to pack the boxes.
And that was you and Martin here?
That was me and Martin, because we used to do work for Wright Bus as well, Wright Composites in Northern Ireland. Martin had his little office, and I had mine, and we used to pack about 5 boxes a day. Right,
for eBay stuff.
Next to the compressor, yeah.
And then East Coast Fibreglass got its own premises.
Actually, before the premises, we had 2 little porta cabins, didn't we?
Well, one on top of the 40-foot office porta cabins on top of each other.
All right.
And I remember when they got delivered, it was one Friday night, back in DME. 2008, and they delivered them. It was absolutely teeming down with rain, and they put one porta cabin down. I was by myself with the driver, then they put the other one on top, and the ground started sinking. So in my wisdom, I went outside in the front street and with a big square and pulled a paving stone up, and I had to put it under one of the legs so they wouldn't sink into the ground, and then they settled the cabins down, it all was level. So I woke up in the middle of the night on the Saturday morning and thought, I've took a paving stone up, hope nobody trips over that. So I had to go to the builder's yard the next day, buy a paving stone and put it in the place where I took one from the street. So
East Coast Fibreglass could have sank without a trace?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were in the factory, then you were outside the factory.
Yeah, and then
you got a little unit.
We hired a unit, which quickly became 2 units, didn't it?
Yes. You got the one next door. That's when I started.
Yeah. And then
in the hottest office in the world.
When Nick started, he used to go in my office on a Wednesday afternoon. In the middle of the summer, he used to come down white as a sheet, sweating.
I nearly fainted. It was ridiculous. It was so hot.
No windows.
I remember that coffee machine we used to have.
Oh yeah.
For all the customers. They used to keep getting jammed all the time. So we trying to serve people, you have a queue of people and someone saying, how do you work this coffee machine? It's jammed.
I mean, in the early days there was only me, Martin, Alex and Dean Yanetta.
Dean,
remember Dean?
Yeah.
And on a Friday I was off. Alex used to go home at 1, And there was Martin and Dean left. I think, did Dean go home at one as well? I'm sure, but anyway, Martin used to pack boxes, answer the phones, serve at the tray counter, deal with the delivery drivers, everything.
The tech.
The phone tech used to be there till like 8 at night. And I remember one Friday, some guy phoned up, because Martin told me about this. He says, can I have tech? He says, oh, I'm only the janitor.
Oh, did you?
Oh, you were nicknamed as Hong Kong Phooey for weeks after that.
And then Martin was trying to serve at the door, put orders up and do everything else, and he decided to close the tray counter until he packed all the boxes so he could get them all away. But he left the roller shutters about a foot off the ground, and there was people crawling under the roller shutters trying to get in.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I was ready for a nervous breakdown that day.
Dear me.
But we used to be there for quite late.
It used to be 7 o'clock every night.
Yeah, loading. Yeah, the dark nights, loading up lorries. We've been there from something like 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes earlier. And there till about, like you say, like 7 something. 8
I mean,
o'clock.
if you woke up at 5 o'clock, you had slept in. And them days, you had to get to work when there's only 3 of us to do tech, do all the ordering, do everything, deal with everything, and at that time we were still manufacturing, so it was like twice as difficult for me. So it was tough days, but you know,
we had young kids as well, because I just had my daughter then as well, and your kids were only little, and yours were quite young as well, Nick.
And you tell these kids to do that,
they don't
and they
believe
won't
you.
believe you. Gary, we're kind of running out of time a little bit, but
Right.
you'll pop in again, won't you? And tell
absolutely,
us some more stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll catch you up next time.
Yeah.
Good
I
fun,
mean,
isn't it?
just before you go, we were just talking earlier, talking about when we survived through COVID and everything and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I remember we were travelling up to see a gig in Wales just as the whole outbreak
nice.
was coming out. And that was, we went to see The Alarm.
The
wasn't
Alarm,
it? It was
yeah, Mike Peters and The
concert,
Alarm.
Yeah.
It's a charity called Love Hope Strength, which deals with blood cancer.
Right.
And we've donated quite a few £1,000s to the cause, which I'll talk to you next time we'll come on about the charity hike we did this year to Mont Blanc with The Alarm and Love Hope Strength. I'll give you some stories about that.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
I'm particularly looking forward to the story about how you conned your way into the best bedroom and shower.
Yes, because I'm the best snorer.
Alright, well, brilliant talking to you, and we'll catch you next time.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers, Gary.
Cheers, Gary. See you later.
So thanks to anybody who's found us and listened.
Yeah.
Hope you like it, and please do get in touch with any suggestions on how we can improve.
Yeah, and what was that email again, Nick?
compositescast@gmail.com.
Brilliant. We look forward to it, and you'll hear from us in the next episode.
Cheers, guys. See you later. Bye.